Hi, friend. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for taking into consideration of contributing to our need. As you consider if you should or should not, I'd like to present to you in video format what is in consideration. I'm basically going to tell you the story of the situation, and then I'm going to place photographs of what I'm talking about as far as the evidence is concerned, and then provide you with a video of actually being at the cemetery in question of what's going on. Our child, Henry, was stillborn in 2014. It was a shock to us and dearly missed. It's not an easy thing to handle, and especially for a mother. My wife had a very difficult time and hasn't completely recuperated from that, despite being 10 years later here in 2024. Um, she used to visit Henry's grave on a regular basis, quite frequently, almost weekly. Eventually, it drifted to monthly, and then she realized that um, maybe this is actually contributing to her depression, which is natural to have. All of this is transpiring in the year 2014 and beyond. We had a uh, encounter with the cemetery as far as originally burying our son in the closest cemetery to our home at the time. And it was suggested to us that, and this is pertinent, to that since the child is so small, to so-called save money, that he would just be nestled in with an adult grave. And uh, we did not like that suggestion whatsoever. We asked for a full plot grave. We wanted our child to basically have that, especially I know that the dead know nothing, and so bear with me here, in which our thought, because we're living, of our child being, yes, to be a headstone allowed, but to be snuggled in with a total stranger sharing a plot, it just didn't feel right. And so we requested our son to have his own plot, and we were willing to pay that. There was a company that made headstones that would do it for free. We didn't realize it at the immediate time, but we found this out. And with the cemetery, this is a second uncomfortable situation in which the company that made the headstone was not allowed to place it into the cemetery for over a year. That didn't sound right either. And every time we would call the company about the headstone, they said that the holdup is the cemetery, not them. It was ready to go. And what was nice about this company is that they do not make headstones and then have a place for storage. But out of the nicety of their heart, they did. So by the year 2015, over a year later, by the way, uh, as I said, July of 2014 is when our son was stillborn, and it was past July 2015. The reason being is because our next son was born, and he was born uh, basically June 28th. And so, as you will see in the picture, He is several months old, so that puts us in basically towards the fall of 2015 when permission was finally granted to put a simple headstone in place. So we're wrestling with this company here, and I'm not going to name names in the video, but we're wrestling with this company for a cemetery, and it's a very significant cemetery, we'll say, because it is involved in a certain type of annual celebration, recognition that is. All right, so some time is passing by, and in the meantime, we relocate, making it a bit more difficult, being a good 40 minutes away now in our new location. Circumstances had us move away, and so that limited the amount of time that my wife would dedicate to going to the cemetery. Um, Certain things such as uh, we experienced, and I don't know why the video would be abrupted if I mention a certain term, so I'm going to try and avoid it just in case, and that is basically the world shut down for several years uh, because of that illness. Nonetheless, so that limited access, if you would, or the desire to get out to visit. Well, recently, my wife took it upon herself she said, it's been a while since I last paid a visit. And so she paid a visit here in 2024, a couple of months ago. When she arrived, she pulled out her phone and gave me a call and said, something is not right here. And she was quite uncomfortable with the feeling that she got. And I said, well, since it is a distance away, why don't you come home? And uh, we have a need to go to that environment, that town, basically, or at least I do, on a weekly basis, and that's personal, and so we'll leave it at that. Uh, And I said, since it's only 2 days away, that it's my weekly trip, I'll swing in and see to try to discover what you think is wrong. And so I don't have much detail other than something just doesn't feel right. Women's intuition, I don't know. So I arrive and I recognize right away our son's headstone is not where it was originally. And so when I got home, well, first off, I took some photographs of that day of where the new location happens to be. And I got home and I told my wife, I said, Your something is off thing. It happens to be, I think the headstone has been moved. Um, it's closer to its neighbor who was there first. And on top of that, there's a marking. Well, we'll just say that it was the neighbor to itself. But remembering also, okay, so I'll go on with that. In the background, I could remember that the tree seems to be off base. Now, I had nothing to go on at this point. And so since I confirmed my wife is uneasy, she gave the cemetery, well, I'm sorry, she tried to contact the cemetery, of which we don't have a direct number to do. So we contacted the funeral home, who did not give us the information to contact, and they said that they'll get back to her. And sure enough, in a few hours, the funeral home director and the cemetery director, I guess, both are on a three-way conference with my wife. My wife explains her uneasiness and says that I believe Henry's uh, not where he's supposed to be, that something moved. And they reassured her that absolutely nothing has changed. Henry is right where he's supposed to be. Excuse me. Um, and and leave it at that. Um, this didn't sit well with my wife. She knew, she had that feeling that something is definitely off, and now she's getting a sense that these two gentlemen are just blowing her off like, well, she's a woman, you know, and she's all upset now. They said, okay, calm down. What we're going to do, it seems that we have another um, um, activity at the cemetery that's going to happen on Saturday. And what we'll do is, the cemetery person said, and again, I don't want to name names yet, or in this video. That's for the lawyers and stuff like that to work out. But they said that they'll go there and check out Henry's environment. The funeral director says, and I'll join him. And they both collaborated together then, um, in whatever they're going to give as a response. However, when they promised by Monday to respond to my wife, Monday came and went, no response. Tuesday also came and went, and so did Wednesday. And by this time, my wife is getting absolutely furious because they promised and they're breaking their promise. I finally found their website, the cemetery person's website, and contacted them by web. His response came to my email address and basically apologized for no one getting back to my wife, and I took it at face value. He then went on after the apology to assure us that no, everything turns out absolutely fine and nothing has changed. Henry's in his right spot and there's nothing more to it. Let's wash our hands. So what we have here is a double lie. That's what we're going to allege here. Being told to my wife and then to myself. Now, at this point, we have no proof because I told my wife, unless we have a clear photograph of before and after, there's no way we could prove one way or the other. We might have this gut feeling. And so we personally were beginning to, in the process of trying to get acceptance of this is how it's going to be because I don't think we have a photo. And then it dawned on me that I would check my archive folder where photos that I haven't seen in a long time happen to reside. And voila, there is a photo from 2015 in so-called recognition of the tombstone being put into place. And the tombstone clearly shows the discrepancy with the background tree being on the different side, the opposite side of the tombstone, in which in today the tombstone happens to be uh, skewed to the right side of the tree when it was on the left side of the tree. You will also see later that today's investigator that our attorney hired, the best he could do is line it up with straight on with the tree. And we're going to share those pictures with you as well. So we then now have evidence and we questioned them and stated that you will now hear from our attorney. And so we did hire an attorney. We put down the required amount of funds to retain. It's a retainer. And out of the retainer, they hired an investigator to go and ask questions. the cemetery, the funeral director, and a third party involved, I think it's a board of the cemetery, member that is, all say that nothing absolutely changed, that it is us with a bad angle. Um, they have confirmed, they have doubled down or tripled down by now in this deception that we sense, or alleged deception that we sense is being perpetrating on us, that they're just trying to dismiss us away as one of their clients, and that uh, you're just a bit irksome and you need to go away. So they have now, in our opinion, lied to my wife, to myself, and to the investigator, not just once, but we're talking the cemetery and the director of the funeral home that we used, which is separate, um, and now to the investigator, who also drummed up a third person who also have committed to this so-called perpetration that's occurring here. And so I'm going to put now before you um, what we feel is the evidence that we are going on. And like I said, I'll follow it up with a video at the cemetery. And and if you sense that what we sense, we hope you would actually contribute, because our goal right now is to say that uh, you are creating unnecessary stress, mental anguish, grief that's unnecessary, and it's having a very big impact upon my wife in a very negative way. Um, that she's not suicidal, but she basically says, I wish this life was over. She has gotten to that point. And because what's happening here is she's reliving 2014 all over again. And I'm doing my best to give her time of peace by taking my children out now, out of the home, uh, to playgrounds and stuff like that, to give her more moments almost on a daily basis, almost at least a couple times a week, 3 times a week sometimes, to collect her thoughts and try and work things out. And so it has been severe on the family, needless to say. My wife is in tears often, the, and we feel like I said, that she feels like because she's a grieving mother, that she's crazy, basically, and making her out to be that. And in other words, modern day term is that we're being gaslighted. So, um, what we're hoping to do is to catch them in this lie, go to court, hopefully be awarded an amount of funds that would be up that would cover the attorney fees, and a little bit more. We're not trying to get rich or anything, but what we want to do then is use those funds, if we win the case, to exhume our son, to know exactly where he is, because what's happening here is that we feel like there's a cover up. That's that's what's happening here, is that we sense that there's a cover up, that they don't want to admit to something illegal. Uh, it is illegal to move a body without the consent of us. And so they can't admit that, yeah, Henry moved over to make room, because, well, uh, grave sites are a premium today, that they're supposedly running out of space and stuff like that. Things are tight, and so where they could save space, they will. And and so that's what we sense is going on here. That may not be the reason. There might be a different reason, and could be as insignificant as it's just a little child. Yeah, big deal. Let's just move them, squish them together, and basically get what was stated originally. Let's just share a plot with somebody else. And we did not want that, and now that's what appears to be happening. Um, in our minds, at least. And we'll let the courts decide this. So that's what our goal is so that we could hopefully win the case to say, you guys are lying to us. You created unnecessary grief to us. We want pain and suffering for this. And now, if we win that case, then we would like to take whatever funds there happens to be. And like I said, find out where our child is. Because here's the other possibility. Henry never moved. And now he, being only a child, they're allowed to only put them down 4 feet. An adult goes down 6 feet. So therefore, what we have is the potential of his new neighbor being underneath Henry. Here's the other concern or a possibility. So either they moved him illegally, he's now sharing a plot which is off to the side of where the tombs or the headstone happens to be. But here's the other one is that when they dug down to put the new person in the grave and they came across Henry, there wasn't much to it being 9 years later from 2014 to 2023. That's when the new neighbor arrived. Did they just say that it wasn't worth it and discarded Henry? Is Henry still in the cemetery? This is all the things that are running through my wife's head and of course mine, but this is causing the stress, the grief, the tears of my wife. We like to get to the bottom of this, but to accuse them to say you moved Henry, the burden of proof is too difficult for us. And so we need to take this in stages. And so we would like your support to help us to bring about the first trial, and that is, uh, are they lying to us? Let's prove that out. Are they lying to us? Let the courts decide. We need the help because the legal fees are racking up fast and potentially thereof. We're just getting started. And there you have it. I like to eventually bring comfort to my wife to say where exactly Henry is and confirm it so that uh, she knows, no, he is in, even if it's a new location, that is where Henry happens to be now, and she can rest. She's going to be a whole lot more uneasy if we find out that, no, Henry's still over in the original spot, assuming that that's where he was, and that's very disturbing. And what will be ultimately disturbing is if we don't find Henry. So that's what's before us. We need help. Now, like I said, I like to share the evidence with you. I start off with the pictures, and then I will, again, provide you with the video of things. Okay. Here we have the 2015 photo that I was referring to, in which notice the tree position. It's if you kind of draw an imaginary line past our oldest daughter, the tree is basically on the right-hand side of Henry's tombstone. Please notice also that there's a box containing some items, if you would. It's a fairly nice size box. It could be compared to, but it wasn't used for this, but it could be compared to like if you got a case of soda cans or something like that. Um, and they lined it up, and now there's no cans, but in fact, there's these contents that we use. So we use that type of box to easily carry the trinkets to the site. Uh, the box itself is almost even with Henry's tombstone. In other words, you could easily push it back to be right beside his stone, and it would fit uh, easily on the right-hand side. Keep in mind, there's a neighbor that's on the right-hand side as well that was there first. And so what we're saying is that there was enough room on in 2015. Yes, it says 2014 because that is the date of remembrance, but the headstone was not put into place. If you see the pumpkin type content there, um, it, uh, it's what I said before. It's autumn, and notice that our child in the background in the cradle carrying could easily also sit next to Henry's headstone, if you would. Behind, by the way, on the ground is the contents that used to be there, but now, hey, we have the headstone here instead, and that's what we have going on. Um, and That's pretty much what I want you to focus on this image is the fact that there is quite a bit of ground on the right-hand side of Henry's headstone, and the tree in the background, which today has a red X to be cut down, it's on the right-hand side of the headstone. Okay, in this photo is actually taken by our investigator. You notice the tree, I know the distance isn't the same, it's a further away shot, but it is a straight on shot. Notice the tree with the X on it happens to now be on the opposite side. Also notice the closeness to the neighbor on the right hand side, that's that big boulder there. Uh, that is what was a greater distance away. Remember, the box that could slide between there, that now cannot happen in this photo. But we have additional photos and angles in just a moment. So in this photo, this is a zoom in on the distance between Henry and the neighbor on the right-hand side. We're talking only a few inches. Well, actually, I measured it. It's 11 inches. So did our investigator, and we'll be taking a look at that as well. But I just want to let you see this and also take note for future uh, uh, um, item to be discussed here. Notice the neighbor on the right hand, I'm sorry, the left hand, the new neighbor. 2023 is when she was placed there. Notice the discoloration in the grass. Um, that's significant in an upcoming photo and video too. Okay, so this is my photo, and I attempted to try and put the tree on the proper side of Henry, his headstone, and well, I guess you could say successfully I did that. However, if you notice, if you compare to the 2015 photo, the headstone alignment is quite off. The angle is not the same. In other words, the uh, in the 2015 photo, the left-hand side is more forward, the right-hand side is more backward, and now we have the opposite here just to get that tree to be on the proper side. In other words, uh, uh, it's not a fake photo. It's you cannot get the tree to be on the proper side and the tombstone to be in the exact same position. It just doesn't work out. In the photo of this one, for the investigator, the best he could do is line up with the tree behind. So now the tree is centered, but that's not the 2015 photo. The 2015 photo, remember, the tree is on the clear right-hand side. And so, and we still have in the photo, the neighbor to the right. You cannot escape that being this close, which is the right distance of the 2015 folder. But now we have that big boulder type headstone that's now in the photo, and it wasn't in the photo originally. That's because the Henry has been moved closer to that, and you cannot adjust to try and cut that out if you would. Again, this is another photo a little distance back. The tree is definitely not on the right-hand side. It's kind of lined up, but now it's actually skewing more to the left-hand side. Uh, it just cannot um, match the 2015 photo. Again, this is our investigator's photo. This video is even further back by our investigator, who clearly shows that the tree is definitely on the left-hand side of Henry, not on the right side, and it's straight on onto his headstone. Yet another shot where the tree is straight on and the neighbor is in the photo once again. In this photo, the investigator shows how close, again, the uh, neighbor to the right-hand side happens to be to Henry, as well as the tree being on the wrong side. Again, this photo is focused on trying to demonstrate from our investigator how close that right-hand neighbor who was buried before Henry there happens to be. There's absolutely no way that that box could have fit in between that. That is in the 2015 photo. There's no way today that if we took that same box and put it next to Henry's tombstone, headstone, that it would fit between there. In this photo, our investigator takes a tape measure and measures out the distance. In my video, you'll see that it comes to 11 inches uh, uh, between the two. In this photo of mine that I took, the tree is clearly off to the wrong side. But more importantly, the purpose of this particular image is please notice the neighbor to Henry's left, the new neighbor of 2023. There's an indentation that goes right up to the edge of Henry's headstone, meaning that Henry doesn't have a plot to himself, he just has leftovers. He's squished in there between the two. Here, the investigator takes a very similar picture, confirming that there is uh, definitely a impression that is different and goes right up against Henry. We paid for a full plot. We believe that we do not have that it has been taken away instead. In this same image that the investigator took, please note Sandra, who is on Henry's left at this point, at the tombstone, and now look in relationship to the tree. That is the identical shot from 2015. Therefore, the cemetery, we believe, has given Sandra our full plot and then has moved Henry's stone at the very least. Who knows what they did underground, but the Henry stone is basically an aisleway. The distance between Sandra and the McCoys, that's the large boulder-like thing on the opposite side, the distance between there is no more than a footpath between full plots. For those that did not catch what I said about the footpath, I drew red lines indicating where the line on the left-hand side of Henry's headstone, that's the line of indentation of the new grave by his Henry's new neighbor as of 2023, Sandra, unfortunately passing away, to occupy that position. Please note on the right-hand side, the estimation that would be occupying by the McCoys, that's the large stone there, uh, indicating that it truly is. Henry does not have a full plot, though we paid for one, a full adult plot, even though Henry's just a little baby. We wanted his own plot, and as in a moment you will see that that's how things are mapped out here, but evidently it does not appear to be abiding. Also notice on the far right-hand side, the distance from McCoy to the next plot, there's this great gap there. You don't see the next one because that's pretty far down to the next one, not for a full adult size to be put in there. In fact, it's approximately the width between Sandra's stone over to the McCoy, ignoring Henry, of course. That's the amount of distance between the McCoy and their neighbor on their right-hand side, making us feel we did not get what we paid for, a full plot. In this particular photo, which I also took a similar one, but this is the investigator, notice the disruption there at the base of Henry, and this is on the back end, by the way. That dirt mesh there, that is an indication that the ground was somewhat recently, in a short period of time, been disturbed. And that's, we consider more evidence that Henry was moved, at least his headstone. In this billboard that they have at the cemetery, we blacked out certain things that are identifiable. We tried our best. If something is left on, my apologies. Like I said, it's not the purpose of us to embarrass, but to come to a conclusion of this matter. But this diagram clearly shows, especially on the right-hand side where Henry happens to be, all the different plots, they're all basically equal sizes. This is a zoomed in and a circle of an approximation of where Henry happens to be. Please notice that all the squares are basically the same size, and we did not get our size. Henry has been reduced to a footpath between there, and it could be that gap that you see or the grayish area. I don't know what is written on the deed and what actually matches up with numbers. All I know, there's a little bit of confusion there, but where the circle is basically where that tree line happens to be. So that concludes our images and narration. That's the evidence that we have. Now I would like to switch over to being actually at the cemetery with a video camera and addressing specific things, so-called live, as a recording of a video. And that's our last piece of evidence to introduce here.
Hi, we're at Henry's site at the cemetery. I have a box off to the side. If you remember, the 2015 photo has a box that's just not the same box. This is a different size box, as in it's smaller, both in height, width, even length. It was more of a sturdier box and thicker box to carry some, as you may have seen, a pumpkin, and a small pumpkin, that is, but heavy stuff in there. This is just a light lid to one of those office boxes that I use. So I figured if what I'm about to demonstrate happens to be, it doesn't work out with this box, it certainly isn't going to work out with the other box, and you'll see what I mean in just a moment here. But what we have here is, if you remember the 2015 photo, there's a tree in the background, and that tree is now on the, if you're facing the headstone, on the left-hand side. The photo had it on the right-hand side, not lined up straight, but on the right-hand side. Yeah, there was a little clips of the corner of the headstone, but nonetheless, that is not the proper lineup. But if I'm looking at the headstone right now, the angle of the headstone to get that picture is right on. That is straightway with the focus of the picture originally. In other words, I was trying to get the details that our son, who was born on the 25th and died on the 25th, stillborn child, that was the focus. Here's our tombstone, because in 2015 we finally were given permission, because the cemetery blocked the installation of the tombstone. I have no idea what the details were, but the people that donated the headstone to us had a hard time getting it in. They were not a storage facility either, but they, out of the goodness of their heart, they did retain it and kept it until permission was finally granted, almost to the year, actually a little over a year, because my wife is about to place some things, and you can see there's a pumpkin. So it's over a year that we have finally gotten permission to put a headstone in, as if, was there something being considered that they didn't want the headstone permitted. We just kept begging and begging and begging until they finally gave in to us. Now, back to the box. That box used to be, before that photo, what happened to be right next to the headstone. It was pulled back for the photo because we didn't want the picture of just some box. And in fact, in all honesty, it's a shame that the box even ended up there, but I guess there's a purpose for that. We wanted a clean shot. My family was standing behind the photo, in line with the tree, not to be lined up with the tree, but just so happened to be in that position that they were in. Now, over to the box. As I said, we used to be able to slide the box in with the content thereof. But now, if I were to slide the box, you got this big stone. I'm sorry to stand on their grave, but there's no room. No disrespect here. I understand that. This stone was placed here well before Henry. In other words, they were buried well ahead of time, and Henry was a bit of a distance that we're suggesting than they have him now. Taking a tape measure, the gap between there is less than 11 inches. My young children, when we came to visit, were so young that they didn't understand the respect of things and were playing on this, and I had to keep telling them to get off of that out of respect while my wife did her thing that day. If they were playing right here, that would have been a direct disturbance to my wife. There was a whole lot more distance here in which, yeah, she recognized, hey, you shouldn't be playing on that, and I took care of it. As she did her thing, I took care of the children then. But if it was just this distance, they would have wrecked whatever she was trying to do. There's no way you could be playing as a little, I don't know, 2 and 5 year old at the time, because again, it's much later. Anyways, this distance here, no matter what angle you try to crop this out, and I have the similar distance, by the way, as far as the photo is concerned, this stone keeps appearing in every single photo now. It was never that case, especially in that 2015 photo. And if you look behind there, you wonder, did they move this over? No, because Henry is now on the right-hand side of that tree when he used to be on the left hand. We had a investigator come out, and the best he could do is line it perfectly up. And that was even a distortion of the angle at that time to try and get that look. If that's the best he can do, I can't imagine what the angle is going to look like, meaning you won't be able to easily see this straight on. It'll be at some type of angle if you try to line it up so that his tombstone is now on the proper side as the 2015 photo. In preparing for this, something else I noticed, and that is this headstone next to Henry is in there nice and solid. So is Henry. But today, I can easily tilt this. It's not attached. Anything could easily knock it over now. I don't know how they fasten it. It's some type of glue. I don't know what it is. But, you know, if you're moving it, which we allegedly are suggesting that's what they did, you don't want to hurt this at all. So to pull it up and move it over, I don't know why they would want to do that other than saving space somehow. You would protect this and detach it. Now, in addition to what we've been saying, or I've been saying, Henry used to be over there. He has now moved into what we consider a walkway between these two plots. Now, you may not see that right away, but I'm going to demonstrate by sort of drawing a line with some, well, utensils. For instance, I'm going to use this rope here, and I'm going to go right along the dug up line that they created, which puts Sandra plot, very large, almost right up against Henry. I'm then now going to take a hoe, because it's yellow and I didn't have another rope, and try and estimate, since a headstone is usually put in the center and Henry's neighbor has a little distance on both sides here. Therefore, trying to keep the same amount of distance, and we'll be panning there, you can clearly see now that it looks nothing more than a walkway. So Henry has been reduced to using the walkway between stones. Why do I say that? Oh, only because the neighbor to the other side of this large stone has a nice walkway, about the same size that Henry's headstone happens to be. In other words, Henry could actually fit in between there. Now, I'm going to pick up the camera, and I hope I don't make you dizzy, but I'm going to try and put Henry on the other side of the tree. So, here we go. And if you take a look at the photo from 2015, the angle of his stone doesn't match up. And again, I have inside that picture that other headstone. I can't get that out of the picture. I would have to move on top of Henry to get that completely out of the picture. Yeah, unfortunately there is a brush that's behind Henry at this point, where you could actually right down to the ground, you would be able to see that I have it positioned just right. Now let's take a look at Sandra over here for a moment. And when I look at Sandra on a similar angle, given Henry, if he was positioned there, look how familiar that angle happens to be. The tree behind Sandra is exactly where we're saying that Henry from 2015 was. In other words, Sandra, we're purporting that, or suggesting that Sandra took our plot, it was stolen from us, and Henry was just moved over into a walkway instead, because hey, it's just a small little coffin. Who's going to notice? You can't tell what's underground. They didn't bargain on the fact that, hey, there's landmarks around here that suggest otherwise, that there's something being covered up. I don't know what it is, but do know this, that from what I understand thus far in all the investigation and discussions, that Henry doesn't have to be buried 6 feet under. He could be buried only 4 feet, making room for Sandra to be underneath, and therefore, as was originally suggested to us, that Henry just borrow a little bit of another person's grave being on top. And that actually freaked out my wife, saying that, you know, I know they're dead and they don't know these things, but just from those that are alive to be thinking about that, unrelated people on top of each other, it's just not respectful. I don't believe that there's respect that's happening in general. Is the case to make first that suggestion and then potentially have that here. Now, why do I say that? Because let's lift this up here, and I'll try and keep it steady. Look at Sandra, her entire plot there. It's all discolored. It's a different, it's sunk in. It's a different coloring of grass. Yes, it's just a year and a few months old. But if you notice over here, and let's get the box out of the way, the land between Henry and this large block for a headstone, they kind of look undisturbed, meaning Henry didn't ever disturb this side of this area. There's no ground suggesting, there's no sunkness. Dirt doesn't build up through rain, it actually gets worn down further. But there is really no difference, and if I even move the hoe out of the way, there is really no difference in the grass. Depthness, even if it was microscopic, there is no difference between Henry and this large stone. And we're suggesting, once again, that Henry was moved closer to that and that they double used this area, and all of this without our consent. We would not be in this position if the if we were just told on the up and up that yeah the stone was moved, that's because, and come up with a legal excuse like, oh, we actually buried Henry over here and we didn't realize that until much later, and so in the past few years we moved his headstone, sorry we didn't warn you, that would be upsetting, but we wouldn't be chasing down a potential lawsuit here. But rather, what we have is that they were confronted, they denied anything that is different whatsoever. All of it. He's not closer to that rock. It just looks that way. It's an optical illusion. Oh, that tree in the background, it depends on the angle that you happen to be. Folks, this isn't the only discrepancies. You got a baby carrying thing that was able to sit between Henry in this large stone. The box I demonstrated does not fit between there when it was on that day that I could actually pull it away to get it out of the photo, but it was close enough for my wife to do her work. You would not put it so far back that she has to reach backwards for it. You would put it right up there so that you could just clean things up, put it in the box, take the new stuff out of the box, put it on the stone, and stuff like that. And then, of course, like I said, they doubled down on that. They turned around, and when I questioned that, and they're basically making my wife out to seem like she's crazy for even thinking that, and I showed up and say, whoa, I know you told me ahead of time something looked different, but it's so recognizable different. And it's not because Sandra moved in. It's because Henry Stone, as we're suggesting, has been moved for some reason, and the ground not being disturbed is very disturbing to us. Is Henry actually over with Sandra? They're suggesting no, he's right there. Or did he disappear, meaning that he's no longer in either place? We can't tell because we don't know what's underground. And to get underground, we got to get through this first step of proving to the courts that, hey, something is being covered up, and indication is this stone has been moved, and here's all of our evidence. And I hope that's sufficient for you to help us in our case. And that's it. Thank you.
So I thank you for your time of listening to this and watching the video, watching our evidence. And if you feel in your heart that you would like to help contribute to the legal fund for Henry, basically, where is Henry? We'd appreciate it. Otherwise, have a good day and thank you.